And that's why I said, and like, I don't think it's fair that I would sit there and say that misandry isn't real, because it is real. It's just not, it's not as like prevalent as misogyny. And a lot of misandry is actually stemmed from misogyny, but it's still a real thing. But there's this video that's from last year, and there was a follow-up for it. And like listening to the video, I remembered last year I dismissed it as nothing because for some reason I've got in this head that I don't really believe in misandry. I think that in general, like, a lot of men just aren't good people, and that's just from my own experiences, and that's from I've had so many bad experiences with men in general. Like, I've been physically abused, I've been bullied, I've been taken advantage of, I've been sexually abused, and it's all been by men. And it's like gotten me into this thing, in this constant response of just not trusting men in general. I don't think I ever will fully trust men, but I think it's not fair to a lot of the men, especially in my community and stuff, and even people who might look up to me, to ignore the fact that I am being somewhat misandric sometimes. Like, even by saying that misandry doesn't exist. So I want to do better. So I'm covering the video and we're going to talk about it. This is from last year.
Please don't shoot the messenger, but cis queer women need to start realizing that the idea that men are inherently evil is a TERF propaganda point that they have bought into and need to unlearn. Men are not inherently evil. The patriarchy is. The patriarchy is, please don't get mad at me. But individual men are not automatically evil. And I don't think you realize how much you are adversely affecting queer men because you are repelling them from their own community. Do you know how much it sucks to be met with a constant air of casual misandry in queer spaces when this is the most content I have ever felt in my body and the most me I have ever felt in my body? It really sucks. It destroys your self-confidence. And it destroys your ability to believe that anyone's gonna want you or pick you. It destroys your self-worth. So I'm just, please don't shoot the messenger, but I'm just asking you to reflect.
And this is the follow-up.
It was exactly 1 year ago today that I posted this video. It's a pretty short video that I didn't really expect to break out of the circle that it was intended for, because I was addressing a really niche piece of discourse. What followed was by far the most intense wave of online hatred and bigotry that I have ever experienced. And it lasted for weeks. I was spoken over, silenced.
This video is centered on trans men, the positions they held and treatment they face within the queer community because I am a trans man speaking to my own experiences. Any comment that interprets this focus on trans men, the lack of coverage on trans women within this context as in any way problematic or hostile will be immediately deleted. The account is blocked. What's about us and strawman's arguments. I'm actually reflecting a lot of this video based on putting myself into like a queer woman's shoes. I know he mentions quite a few times about cis queer women, but I feel like I sometimes echo some of the rhetoric that he mentions.
My transness was erased. And what was originally a video about the rise of TERF rhetoric in queer spaces and how much that affects the genderqueer men in those spaces was reshaped into some nice guy complaining about women not liking him. My appearance was ridiculed.
Know that I don't want to take away from what he's saying, but this is exactly the type of stuff we deal with as trans women, where if we have any legitimate concern, we get treated either as women in a very negative way, or we get treated as men and should not be talking over women. So I definitely like really reflect on what he's saying on this.
And I received several death threats and dozens of comments telling me that I should self-delete. It was strangely a picture-perfect example of the exact attitudes and rhetoric I was referring to. Ones that are forcing people like me out of queer community. What people seemed to take the most issue with was my use of the term casual misandry to describe the kind of behaviour I've experienced in the queer community since the moment I started passing. And it's important to me for people to know that I understand that using that term poked at a sore spot for a lot of women and it caused a knee-jerk reaction.
I would have never guessed this guy is trans. Both body and voice are masculine. Sucks that he is suffering. This is what I have to deal with too. I bring up the fact that I'm trans, and I receive so much endless abuse because of it. Even though I pass IRL, like I have no issues passing. And I'm not saying as like a flex or anything. I'm just saying that that's my truth. That is my reality. I still deal with the hatred. It doesn't matter if you pass or not. If someone finds out you're trans, you are dealt the same way as if you were a freshly first week transition person. That's just how this is. That's how hatred is when it comes to transphobia.
And that is quite literally the entire reason that I used the term. Because if I had called this behaviour anything else, you would not have listened to me. I could have called it transandrophobia or just regular transphobia, but the people that actually needed to hear me would have tuned out, because they either don't know what it means or they don't care. So I decided to call it what it actually is, which is a prejudice against men, or perhaps more accurately, masculinity in general. One that has been brought on by the steady drip of bioessentialist TERF rhetoric infesting our community.
This is what I meant before about how, like, I echo some of the points that he is, like, critiquing right here. Like, I say some of these points and then I didn't even realize until I watched this video that I have been echoing this rhetoric. I've been echoing TERF rhetoric all this time, and I didn't even realize it. I know it's like based on my own anecdotal experience, but my anecdotal experience doesn't overwrite someone's identity. I've been so cruel to some men because of the fact that they're men, and I don't know why I would let, you know, that type of stuff happen. I can't sit there and be, you know, a voice for trans people if I'm not a voice for trans men too. My first trans friend was a trans man. It turns out I was a trans femme. Yeah. I have a trans man friend. We're not like super close, but I think the fact that I had such a good connection with him, like he was my buddy, he was my friend. And I remember the first time I realized he was trans, because I didn't know. And I went up and talked to him, and I told him that I was trans too. And I asked if I could give him a hug, like immediately. And I remember that was such a special moment to me, because it's so rare to meet another trans person out in the wild, you know? Especially someone you work with. Yeah, that was like, it was really special to me that he was going through the same journey as me, but just in a different direction. But yeah, whenever I reflect on stuff like this, I think about my relationship I had with that friend who was a trans man. It's like, I always treated him with kindness. I didn't treat him like a woman. I treated him like a man. And he was just a good friend, and we like got along, and we hung out, we made jokes, and it's like, I can have male friends that aren't just, you know, I can let my guard down. I don't need to always be afraid. It's so hard to let go of some of that trauma sometimes, because when you deal with like all that type of trauma your entire life, dealing with men your entire life, it's hard to let go of like any type of prejudice you would have like that. And that's why I said, and like, I don't think it's fair that I would sit there and say that misandry isn't real, because it is real. It's just not, it's not as like prevalent as misogyny, and a lot of misandry is actually stemmed from misogyny, but it's still a real thing.
I've been finding it quite personally frustrating to see so many videos this past Pride Month of mainly cis queer women making the same point in various forms, and to see how much more willing some people seem to be to accept that message from a cis woman when they refused to accept it from a trans man just last year. In fact, they were happy to actively harass and ridicule said trans man for speaking to his own lived experiences in the queer community. All of this to say that I think one of the main reasons trans men are so overlooked and ignored and invisible to the queer community is because we are inconvenient. We are inconvenient to the hegemonic structure of the queer community and patriarchy at large. Our existence, our identities, challenge several foundational aspects of this social system that we exist within, which causes many cis people to become anything between mildly uncomfortable to violently hateful in response. Patriarchy relies on the idea that men are born and not made, which makes trans men an existential threat to the system, We have the ability to expose how much masculinity is constructed, learned, and performed in the same way that any gender identity is constructed, learned, and performed. We complicate simplistic understanding.
That's something that I wanted to address directly, because he's completely right about the fact that trans men really do break apart the patriarchy. Actually, I think more than trans women, because trans women, we are like seen as men who gave up our role in the patriarchy, and trans men are seen as like invading the patriarchy. Yeah, I've even heard people say like, why would you decide to become a woman when you have like male privilege and stuff like that? And it's like, I've even heard people say that trans women still have male privilege, and it's like, none of that is true. It's just how society views gender identity, and it's gonna take so long to like break this mold. And you don't see this in other cultures. A lot of other cultures don't have this type of bullshit. And I think it's just like very prevalent in the Western cultures. I think other cultures don't really have like huge emphasis on patriarchy structures. I would really like to learn more about other cultures just to see other perspectives. I've heard like some of the cultures in Africa and stuff don't even dwell on patriarchy structures. It's more about like humanity as a whole and humanity as like one unit. And there's a video I watched about this recently. It's very interesting, but I'm getting off topic. A lot of people view patriarchy as, you know, men are born and not made, but it also breaks in the fact that trans women, we break the patriarchy in the fact that we don't want to be men, like we want to be women, and that breaks people's brains. But when they see trans men, they are like, well, these women are invading our patriarch structure, and they're trying to become men, and it's like so fascinating. Hearing all this doesn't paint a picture of humanity, makes our race as a whole still look largely primitive and unintelligent. True. Even as a cis man, I never got any of the supposed male privilege. I still get beaten up, humiliated, and harassed, all because I am a kind of empathetic man. And eventually, apparently as a man, you're supposed to be aggressive, violent, and sadistic, and I refuse to be like that. That is misogyny. Like what you're dealing with, like what you're like explaining is misogyny, because they see empathy and kindness as a feminine trait. It's really, as you just said above, very primitive and unintelligent. You can see in the bathroom arguments too, trans men are a threat to women. Trans men are seen as never a threat to women, with implication because they're weak and inferior to real men, while trans women are strong and brutish compared to real women. You know, the funny thing is within like 6 months, within like 6 months of me transitioning, I lost like all my muscle mass, and my wife was able to easily overpower me. Kind of off topic, but just like, you know, putting that out there.
Endings of victim and oppressor binaries, because we expose how power shifts over time and across different contexts. We directly challenge the idea masculinity bad, femininity good, that a lot of cis people, cis women in particular, end up with when they don't appropriately understand intersectionality. But I think we are probably the most inconvenient when we are exposing the ways patriarchy affects all men, cis and trans alike. We expose the way women can, consciously or not, reinforce the patriarchal expectations of men by believing bad behaviour is inherent and unchangeable. We expose the exclusion and social isolation many men.
I'm guilty of this. I've even said, like, in the past where I've seen, like, a very aggressive trans man. Like, I've even said, well, you know, it's, like, typical man. Because, like, I feel... Because as a trans woman, I know that my brain is more wired to be a woman. So, in my mind, it's, like, the opposite. But in the same sense, I'm reinforcing that bad thought that men are inherently, like, mischievous or, you know, cruel on purpose. That's why I said I need to do better. I need to be not so quick to judge.
Experience at the hands of both men and women when they don't conform to the dominant, emotionally restrained ideals of hegemonic masculinity. I am sick and tired of having to bear the weight of that inconvenience. It should not be mine nor any trans man's problem that his identity challenges your understanding of the world. I poked the sore spot for a reason. It was to try and force you out of your comfortable positions and to face the inconvenient truth that nothing is as simple as masculinity bad, femininity good. And instead of sitting with that uncomfortable feeling and trying to understand why what I said made you so defensive, so many of you decided the appropriate course of action was to harass a trans man so severely that he is still, to this day, recovering from it.
To be fair, I never harassed him for this original video. I just dismissed it as nothing because I didn't want to listen to it because I was still really caught in my ways. And I think I've been critiqued really recently about dismissing trans men as like aggressive or something like that, like really recently. So that's why I kind of felt a little guilt for this and why it like touched me immediately and wanting to do better.
Also, you could continue to live your lives comfortably ignoring, if not violently silencing, anyone who dares to point out how your behaviour continues to reinforce the same systems that oppress you too. Trans men exist. Trans men deserve your support. Trans men deserve to be seen, heard, listened to, valued, and most of all, respected to the same degree everybody in the queer community does. You don't get to ignore and silence us because we are inconvenient to your way of life. It's time to figure out how to learn and grow because I refuse to bear the weight of your ignorance any longer.
Yeah, like I said, that really hit me hard because I realized that I've been like very dismissive of like some trans men's struggles and just men in general. It's not just trans men, it's just I don't want to be quick to judge and I want to do better. So like I don't even have to acknowledge this, but I think it's better if I do acknowledge it before it becomes a problem. So yeah, if you ever just seen me being like prejudiced against men in general in like a very negative way and not just as like a running joke or something, I want to say sorry because I'm not perfect. People are shit, doesn't matter the gender, sexuality, race, religion, or anything. Some people are just hateful and miserable. True. I've definitely noticed some people generalizing trans men in the way he talked about. Yeah, that's why I noticed it too, and I realized I was part of the problem. So no one's perfect. No one should be trying to be perfect. Just try and be better. If you don't manage it, then no worries. There's always tomorrow. I want to do better. That's all. That's all. I just want to do better.
She's pink and she's glowing. Her hair stays flowing and she drops hot takes like she just don't care. Your precious lady is about to arrive. Wouldn't advise getting on her bad side. Don't know if she has talent, but she just might. Everybody questioning who the best druid around is. Like who is? It's the pretty pink icon. Whooith.